Hi, folks. Good morning. Welcome. I'm pretty sure it's Thursday, and we're happy to have you with us here live for this introduction to Trustworthy. Getting started with Trustworthy. I'm Nat Robinson, co-founder and CEO. I'm joined today by Kyle Adamo, our head of product, and also Eric, who is our head of support. Thanks, guys, for joining today. We do these live so you can ask questions and we can answer them live if we can. And the format for today is going to do a little intro, a lot of demo, and then as many questions as we can handle, and maybe even show you some sneak previews of some stuff that's coming up here in the not too distant future. If you're lucky, you play your cards right. Let's see what kind of questions we get. All right. So the big problem that Trustworthy addresses is this idea of information overload. Most families, and if they have advisors, are dealing with a really overwhelming amount of information across their lives and households. We hear this phrase again and again. It's all over the place. I have lots of silos of information for finance, for insurance, for property, for home life, for my home, my warranties, my kids' information, my information. Like, just goes on and on and on. You can see some of the long list of things here on the right. That information isn't going away. In fact, it's increasing. The amount of information that's being created on a daily basis is only exponentially growing. So there's only going to be more stuff for us all to deal with. It turns out that this problem has some material costs. The average family is spending about 51 hours. That's a pretty conservative estimate, staying on top of household paperwork. If they're not on top of things, the fees and penalties, the late fees and penalties and costs to their credit score, these insipid costs that creep in on your bank statements, now costing an average of $1,268 a year per average American family. That's a number that's gone up year over year. I imagine it'll go up again this year. It's a crazy big number. So we want to help avoid those expenses by helping you stay on top of things, obviously. And then this last cost, this anxiety, 84% of people reporting, this sort of mental load is what we like to call it, across trying to stay up with their household information and to keep everything up to date and on task. Almost everyone we've talked to, now thousands of families, has tried to build a DIY, a do-it-yourself version of what we now call Trustworthy, the family operating system. And when we started, we tried to use some of these systems too, whether it was Google Docs or Dropbox or some other productivity tool that we were trying to bend to our will to make this work. And we found that they all kind of fell short in the same areas. They all started with a blank page. There was no guidance. They required you to build it from scratch and maintain it as things changed, as things came and went. And that wasn't great. Every family doing it for themselves just was crazy to us. Like, why isn't there a system of record that families can use to get further faster? Moreover, the information you put into those documents or systems, you didn't get a return on that information. There was no force feedback. There was no understanding of what that information was. And it was just like, dead zone, basically. A big one was that those kinds of systems don't handle temporal sharing, meaning if I want to share something with you, my loved ones, that I couldn't hold some of that back for later. I had to share everything. Like, here's the spreadsheet with all the information. Don't look at tab 2 until I pass away. Something of that nature. There wasn't any temporal ability to share some things now or nothing now, all later, some combinations of those kinds of things. Free tools obviously had questionable security. What were they using my information for? There wasn't any service, and they just, obviously they weren't purpose built for this use case of keeping household family information private and secure. Of course, we're all aware of some of the sort of external factors that are driving this. Digital first. Everything is becoming digital first or digital only. We saw this accelerated through the pandemic, broadly called digital transformation. Even government is moving in this direction. So it's real when government's doing it or catches up. This big wealth transfer is happening with the baby boomer generation retiring and planning their estate transitions. A lot of wealth passing from one generation to subsequent generations. How do people deal with that and prepare for that? Climate change related disasters seem to be on the increase. The frequency and intensity of those, we've seen a lot already this year. And then we sort of touched on mental health, now the number one issue for American healthcare. So we built the family operating system really to be this trusted family digital assistant that helps you protect and secure all the information and deal with all the things that, really aren't that fun. Your paperwork, making sure that you have access to it and the information when you need it, making sure that your loved ones have access to it if something were to happen to you, making sure that your advisors can collaborate with you, your accountant for tax purposes, your estate planning attorney, your wealth advisor, that they can all participate in your system and that you can do the things that you need to do efficiently in the moments that you need to do them across all of life's moments. So that's really what Trustworthy is and does. That's enough for me. Let's hand over to Kyle and let's take a look at the system itself.
I'm going to share, I'm logged into my desktop version, a brand new account that I've created, and we'll take a look on the web app that I'm in now. We'll also jump into, let's see, I've got it running here, our mobile app that runs on iOS and Android. We'll take a look at that. Mostly I want to get you familiar with a couple things, how sort of best practices in getting started, and some of the mechanics of working with Autopilot, which is an AI assistant which will analyze some of the files that you upload and help you get them to the right spot and make it easier for you to fill out some of the forms and Trustworthy to get organized quickly. There's a lot of different ways to get data into Trustworthy, so I want to touch on as many of those as I can just to make it really convenient for you to get started. In this account that we're looking at, I just created this earlier this morning. I've done a couple things. One is I set up my MFA, and you'll see a bunch of tasks that appear, what we call quick start. These are like items that we recommend you doing as you're getting started with Trustworthy. The very first one on your list was set up MFA. MFA is a secondary authentication that helps keep your account protected. So that could be it sends an SMS code, or it's a time-based one-time password. You could even use hardware keys like a YubiKey or something like that to authorize yourself. So I've set that up already so it doesn't interfere with anything that I want to do next. The other thing that I've done is I downloaded the mobile app. So one of my quick start items was download the mobile app. I've done that, so now it's removed. Some of these items that you see here, they're helping you sort of discover some of the features in Trustworthy. And as you click on these, if I click on add your first files, it's going to take me on a tour, show me a hint as to where to go. If I click on something like set up your household, it's going to take me to the place where you would go to do that. So it's important to follow through on some of these. Many people just jump in and start doing things. That's fine too. As you complete the tasks, even if you're not following through and clicking the tours, it'll start to knock these task items off, and eventually your list will get down to 0. The other thing that you see on your dashboard is an activity feed. So this will show you all the things that are changing, places that you've visited recently, things you've uploaded recently. It's like a log of recent changes in your account. When we get into our discussion of collaborators and how a collaborator can interact with your account, this feed becomes really interesting, that you'll see what other people are doing in your account as well, whether that's a spouse or an advisor that you've invited, like a wealth advisor or a CPA. You'll get to see the things that they're uploading or changing as well inside your account. So a couple things that I want to do here is, so far I'm alone in this account. There's nobody else in here. What I want to do is start to build out my family in a section called Family IDs. This represents the people within the household, people and pets, so to speak. So these will represent the people whose data you're managing inside Trustworthy. So it's important to think about, who do I want to add to this account? They don't immediately get invited as a collaborator into Trustworthy, but I'll show you how you can do that at the sort of same time as well. Let's do a couple things. I'm going to add someone from scratch here, and then I'm going to come about this in a different way where I'm going to upload a file like an ID card, and it's going to help to create family members based on that ID card that you've uploaded. I'm going to first add someone from scratch here. So let's say I click on add new family ID, and I'm going to do, let's do Emily Reynolds. This is my daughter, and I can create that family ID. If I've got a profile photo handy, I can upload that as well, just to personalize it. And I'm gonna do create family ID here. You can see this option to invite as collaborator. In this case, my daughter, I'm not going to invite her, but when I get to creating my wife's family ID, I might invite my wife into this so she can help build out Trustworthy. So I'm going to click create family ID. This is sort of an early phase of just sort of customizing and getting this ready to go. So that family ID is in there. A few things happen when you add family IDs is it's going to create what we call recommended items in each of these categories based on, you know, their age and the fact that this is a daughter or a child. It'll create certain things inside your account. You'll start to see this if I go into any of these other categories. There's these items called pre-populated tiles. These are just like recommendations based on the people in your account. These are the things that we think you should have. And you can click into those to start filling out those forms to populate them. We just don't want you to start from a blank page where you might wonder, what are the things that I put into my finance category? What are the things I put into my property category? We'll give you a sense of those things here. And you can just click into them if you want to keep that item, or you can delete it if it's not relevant to you. So I've created a family ID here for Emily. Let's talk about another way that things can get created. Trustworthy can help build out all those different tiles that you see on those pages just by uploading files into the system. We're going to talk about a lot of different ways to get files in there, but I'm going to start just by dragging and dropping some files onto this page. And we're going to see something called the inbox and something called Autopilot. So let me do this. I'm going to grab a license, passport. Let's do a few things here. How about some? All right, I'm going to drag a cross section of files in here. So I'm going to just let you see this sorts of things. I happen to have some digital files. You might have a thumb drive, you might have a USB drive, you might have a place on your computer where you already have files. If that's the case, you can just start dragging them into Trustworthy. I've got some licenses, passports. Looks like I got a bank statement here, vehicle registration cards, and a mystery one here called sent from Xerox 3. So when I drop those files in, what happens is it opens up my inbox. And the inbox is sort of a staging area. It's where you can, when you're in the mode of like curating data and going off to find all the files that you want to put into Trustworthy, it's the best place to put stuff initially. You don't have to think about where it's going to get filed. Just get it into Trustworthy, get it secured, just drag it to the home page or click browse or open up this inbox and drop stuff in. What happens when stuff lands in Trustworthy is it's going to analyze the file, it's going to process it, and it's going to give you suggestions as to where to file it. The goal is to empty this inbox and move everything to the right spot. Some of the hints that you're going to see on this inbox are going to help you get these items to the right spot. There's some mechanics in here around drag and drop that I just want to make sure we share, just so it's clear how this works. So you can see all these files have come in. There's a lot of different information on these files that got created. This one in particular, this was sent from Xerox 3113. It's analyzed this file, and I can click on details to see what it knows about it. It knows that this is like a closing disclosure. It knows something about this home that it represents. It's even going to suggest a better file name from it. Sent from Xerox, not the best name. My lawyer likes to send stuff right from their scanner with these crazy names. We're going to suggest better file names to make it more discoverable, because in the end, it's not always going to be you using the system. Other people need to know, be able to navigate quickly, search for items, and make it come up. So if we give it a better name, it'll be more searchable. It'll be more intuitive when I see it on screen, what this actually is. So I can accept this name change. It'll even create a summary of these things, so you can get sort of a plain English summary of what this is all about and some other facts about it. These details will follow this file no matter where I move it. But the goal here is to take a look at the suggested actions and follow through on some of those things. I'll come back to this one in a minute. I want to take a look at what some of these other ones are in here. So I've got some vehicle registrations. I've got a passport. As we're talking about building out our family members in here, because it found an ID card for Laura Reynolds, who's my Adamo wife, it knows we've never seen Laura before in Trustworthy. There's no record for her yet. And it's telling me, you know what, you should add Laura to your family IDs section. And sometimes you'll see actions for open, sometimes you'll see actions for add. Add is basically going to create a page in my family IDs category for Laura. You can see here it's saying family IDs, family member. When I click add, it's going to create this empty page for Laura inside family IDs. And then my goal here is to drag this file to the most appropriate spot here. So we already have a spot here for driver's license. So I'm going to drag this over there and drop it. And we're going to come up with, in many cases, we'll come up with some autofills, which are things that we can fill in automatically for you. I'm going to accept that. And it's going to populate some details and it's going to create a reminder. In some cases, we'll be able to fill in more things. This one, David Reynolds, it says open. When I click on open, it's going to take me to the page that already exists for David Reynolds. And I can just move this over to the passport spot. It's going to snap in some of these autofills again. You can see these items here. It's like data it's extracted from the document that has a home on this page that needs to be filled in, because we're asking you to fill in things like number and country issued and expiry date. It knows that those existed on that doc, and it's going to help you fill them in and create appropriate reminders. So it's created a reminder to renew this passport as well, and it's filled in all the details there. And this sort of pattern continues throughout. This happens to be a vehicle registration card that I grabbed. Same sort of thing here. It knows, hey, this represents a vehicle. It's a vehicle we've never seen inside Trustworthy. You should add it to the property category under vehicles. And if I click add, it creates a page, and then I can just drag this file to the registration area, and it's going to fill in the majority of the items here. So it's going to fill in pretty much everything on this form and also create a reminder. My data file is a bit old, so it's already expired. So that's a bit about these mechanics of this inbox. What I recommend is, the hardest part of getting started is going to find all of your data throughout your home or wherever it might be, to digitize it and get it into Trustworthy. We'll step into some of the tools that'll make that easy for you in a second, but I just want to make sure this was clear. We're trying to get stuff out of Trustworthy into the most likely place. In many cases, there'll be a spot within sort of the main area of the page to drop these files. In some other cases, let's say this example where this was a bank statement that I uploaded. It knows that it's never seen this bank account. It knows it should create a space inside my finance category for this. If I click add, there's no area here for me to drop statements, but there is, on every page, there is a subsection here called files, and it's more of a catch-all for any additional files that you want to add to this page. What I like about this functionality is you can create custom folders in here, so to speak. So I could create a folder called bank statements. And this concept will apply to all different types of items, whether it's a home, a vehicle, a finance account. Once I have a spot where I want to drag that file to, I can just drop it there, and we'll still get the autofill capability here. It's identified that there's data that could help you fill out this form that comes from that file. I can just accept it, and it's going to populate everything on this form. Okay, and it even formed links back to other things it found in Trustworthy that are related, like in this case, David Reynolds. So it's linked right back to him. Same thing applies here. This thinks, because this is a closing disclosure on a home, it's going to create a home inside my property category. I can click add. Again, it's got a lot of details that it wants to fill in. This will help you fill in some of these, but again, there's no place for me to drop that file. I can move it to this files block, or maybe I want to create a custom folder, and we'll call this closing docs, where I might put inspections and anything to do with the sale or the purchase, and I could drop those in there. Okay, if there's autofills, it's going to help fill those in, like addresses and ownership and things like that. And then you can go back and fill in the rest of the content on this page as well. So that's a bit about the mechanics of like working with this inbox inside the web app. It's a really great tool to help you sort of just secure the files first. Let's get them into Trustworthy and then sort it out later. And by the time you return to Trustworthy, AI will have analyzed these and come up with a plan as to what to do with them. Okay, I'm just going to clear the rest of these items in my inbox, then let's talk about some other ways you can get data in. All right, so I got a couple cars, I got some vehicles, I got a number of things inside Trustworthy. And if I go back to sort of this property category, there's my home, there's my vehicles, and then I've still got a bunch of other like pre-populated tiles in here. Just a reminder that there's more that you can add in there. You can see that it's lit up a few reminders as well based on the data that I put in there. Because my data is kind of old-ish, or the files I'm using are old samples. Some of these are already expired, but you'll get the sense of how this is working. It's going to create these reminders, and these are going to get surfaced via email and sent to you in advance to make sure you're on top of some of these to-dos. All right, so that was a bit about dragging and dropping files. You can see one of my, a couple of my quick start tasks have disappeared. There was one about add your first files. It's gone because I've done that. There was another task about add your financial accounts. It's gone because I've started that process, added a finance account. So these will slowly trickle away as you do those things. One other thing that I want to talk about, which is a key way that I see people get data into Trustworthy, if you think about all the surfaces where data lives outside of Trustworthy, email is this huge like repository of like personal household documents. I see it all the time. We did a survey of our clients, and it was something like 90% of people have data that should be inside Trustworthy sitting in their Gmail inbox or their Outlook inbox or something like that. We've got a capacity here. You'll see a task here that's like save time, email files to Trustworthy. You can click on this to get access to an email address. We call this your email to inbox address. It's unique to your account. It's not the type of email address that you're just going to commit to memory. What I recommend doing is taking this email and copying it and going over to whatever your contact system is. Let's say it's, in my case, it's Google Contacts. You might have Apple Contacts, you might have Outlook Contacts, different places that you can put a contact such that when you go to send an email, it's available in that email. Let me show you what I mean. So I use Google Contacts because I'm a Gmail user. I've got a list of existing contacts in here. Prior to this, I set up a contact called Trustworthy Inbox October webinar. And this contains my email to inbox address. So you might set up a contact in whatever your default contact manager is for the Trustworthy Inbox. Put that email address in there so it's easy to use. And then what that means is inside your email, whether it's on the web or you're on mobile, you can now forward an email that has attachments to that address. So if I come in here and I say October webinar and I send this email, it's going to take these life insurance policies here and it's going to drop them into Trustworthy in a few moments. You're going to see them land inside this inbox area. Now, just a note about this, we are only touching attachments on your email. That's what we're pulling in. We're not grabbing the body of the email. We're sort of discarding that. We're only dealing with attachments, so like PDFs and PNGs and things like that. Those will get scraped off of those emails and land inside Trustworthy. At some point in the future, we'll be dealing with sort of more of the email content. There's more things coming in the future about inboxes. But for now, this is something I use all the time. As things come in, whether it's a receipt or an invoice, I'll forward those to Trustworthy. My kid's school sends heaps of docs all the time. I'll just forward them into Trustworthy just to make sure they're there. And then I'll come back to Trustworthy later and file them to the right spot. So you can see that those have snapped into my inbox. They've landed there. And the same sort of process applies. It's like, hey, we know this is a life insurance policy. I can say add to add it to my insurance category, drag it over to the policy block. It's going to fill in all the details, including a reminder for the end of term. And then I'm just going to clean up this title because it's a bit extreme. So you can always change these sort of nicknames that are at the top, and just to clean them up and make them more appropriate or shorter. Those nicknames are what you see when you're browsing through a category or when you're searching for things, okay? So that's how email to inbox works. I know this has been pretty meaningful for a lot of our clients. Nat, I know you use this on a recent real estate transaction pretty heavily. Maybe tell people how you implemented that.
Yeah, I mean, it's magic. If you are in any kind of transaction, you have a lot of documents landing in your inbox, which is really not the place you want to keep them. Share your email ID with your realtors, your title company, anyone else involved in the transaction, and ask them to copy that email ID on anything that they send you, and the inspector, you know, the masses of things that you get. It's a great hack for making sure that everything goes straight into your Trustworthy account, gets organized automatically, and lands where it needs to be, so that you know exactly where the closing statement is, where you know the title is, you know, all those separate documents and bits and pieces that eventually you may want to refer back to at some point.
So email to inbox, pretty powerful thing. I'd suggest like get on that as quickly as you can. Start to work it into your routine of like, as I see an email come in, if it's got a file on it that is appropriate to Trustworthy, send it through. Not everything needs to go into Trustworthy, but a lot of the stuff that you see, especially things with attachments, might make sense to back up and secure inside Trustworthy. So it's a really easy way to work with things, and because it's like you're just forwarding an email to it, you can do it from mobile, you can do it from desktop. I know there's questions sort of piling up there, and I think what I want to do first is let's talk through a couple more ways to get data into Trustworthy, and then we'll take a pause and knock out some of these questions. Speaking of mobile, let's jump over to the mobile app for a second. So it's on iOS and Android. Let me grab my device here and unlock and talk through this a bit. Mobile is a great place. What we see is a lot of people will start on desktop and like do some early organization on desktop, and then they'll quickly transition to mobile for a lot of their daily activity, which is like something new came in from the mail. I want to scan it and get it into Trustworthy, or I'm going through a filing cabinet. I want to scan some documents and get them into Trustworthy. It's a great tool for that. It has a built-in scanner that's hooked directly up to your inbox. It'll send stuff there. And it's also a great tool for doing searches if you need data while you're on the go. And we'll touch on a couple of those things now. I just want to show you the scanning functionality and run through a scenario here. I've got a document here that I pulled out of the mail. It is a insurance policy declarations page for auto insurance. What I would do, if you see my cursor moving around here on screen, this button down at the bottom, this plus button, will launch a few options of ways for you to get data into Trustworthy. Scanning document is what I use the most. It'll help you sort of get a clear scan of that doc. I'm going to use that in this case, and I'm just going to point it at this file that has a lot of coffee stains on it. So it's going to grab that file. It didn't do the best job on that one because I've got other things in the way. Let me just save that and see if it succeeds in processing this. So using the scanner will take some work. It's got some auto detection, things like that. I think because the contrast on my desk here, it's not grabbing it so easily. But it's grabbed that file. It's sent it into Trustworthy already. If I was to click back into my web app here, I'll see that file has landed here. In fact, even though I got such a crazy scan of it, it knows what it is. It knows a lot of details about this. It was able to sort it out pretty quickly to come up with those details. A couple things are happening here is it has made a suggestion as to what to do with that file. It knows what it is. Let me go back to mobile and just show you what's happened on mobile. Just like on the web app, you've got this idea of an inbox here that I can click on. So if I click on inbox, I'll see the things that are in there and also these suggestions as well. So you can see that it's suggested a new tile for auto insurance. I can also see that on the web. It's done the same thing there. On mobile, if I would just want to tap on the plus button here, it'll create that new area for this auto insurance, and I could just decide where within the new page I want to put it. I'm going to put it in this policy document area and attach it. And it's moved the file over there to that spot. You can see it's been removed from here as well. So I was able to file it and move it over to the appropriate spot. And now if I come back over here, I'll see that file in there, and I'll see these autofills are set up, and I can accept these autofills. I can do that on mobile as well. I can accept all the autofills there as well. So this is a bit about mobile. It allows you to scan those items really quickly. The other thing that gets used pretty heavily on mobile is, let me go back to my home screen, this idea of searching. So of course you can just browse through items on mobile, but oftentimes I find you're in a hurry. If you wanted to look at details about your Toyota Sienna, you could search for Sienna. Let's say you needed the VIN number really quick. I could tap on that Sienna and go grab that VIN number from my screen. I actually used this not too long ago on a trip to the DMV, where I came to the front of the line and they asked me for my VIN, which I did not know, and I could find it in Trustworthy very quickly. So it's a great tool for finding things quickly, great tool for scanning stuff and getting it into Trustworthy. And as we sort of develop our mobile app in the future, there's new stuff coming that'll allow you to do voice chats and get questions answered really quickly from your data. All right, one last place that I want to talk about as far as getting data in. Let me use my camera here for a second. And I've got this scanner set up. It's a ScanSnap scanner. ScanSnap's a Ricoh type scanner. You can configure this scanner to automatically scan a file and send it to your Trustworthy email inbox address. So just by scanning it, it'll send it into Trustworthy right away. There's a way through the ScanSnap software, you can set up these profiles and say, choose a profile that's connected to your Trustworthy. I have one set up here called Webinar. I can just tap on that profile and then click scan, and it's going to grab this file, which happens to be a utility bill, and it's going to scan it, then it's going to send it through to Trustworthy. All right, let's take a pause here for a second, and I want to talk about some questions that we got, because I see them piling up. Eric, do you want to kick us off and maybe start at the top and work our way through?
Yep. All right. Happy Thursday, everyone. Thanks for all the questions. We're going to start with Anurag. Anurag, nice to hear from you again. The first question is there a lifetime membership available?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Eric. We don't have a lifetime membership available. We have sold multi-year subscriptions in the past, really just to get a signal on what we think of as lifetime value for customers. But the idea of a lifetime subscription is sort of upside down for any company, meaning you could have Trustworthy for 20 years and buy in 20 years of value at today's price, which makes great sense for you, but it doesn't make great sense for us as a company. If you're interested in a multi-year subscription, contact support@trustworthy.com and we'll figure out a discount for that.
Okay, next question is from Herschel. Do you have plans to add a shared calendar so that children can keep track of the schedules of elderly parents?
Yes, so this is, I'll fill this one because we're sort of up to our eyeballs in sort of roadmap items right now on the product and engineering side. One big part of that is calendars and events. Right now, Trustworthy doesn't have a shared calendar. You've got reminders inside Trustworthy, they get circulated via email and things like that, but there is no shared calendar yet. This is a pretty hot button for us and a lot of our users. So as we sort of move towards, there's a big increment that we're working towards at the start of the new year that'll have a lot more bells and whistles around reminders and events and calendar interaction. Just so think that, we'll be able to pull events and reminders from any document that comes up and build a reminder around it. You can snap a photo of, let's say you get a medical appointment card, you know how they like to leave you with these cards when you leave the doctor to return. You can scan a photo of that, it'll create a reminder, with the goal that we can create a shared calendar of all this household admin stuff, and share within people in the household. So we don't have it now. There are plans for it. I can't give you a specific date, but it is coming soon, probably in the new year.
All right. Our next question is from Robert. Can I import Google Contacts, and how do I keep contacts updated?
Yeah, let me take you through importing contacts. There's a couple ways to do that, and then we'll touch on how to keep contacts updated, because that's a bit of a longer story. Trustworthy does have this area called contacts. It gets used pretty heavily by our clients, and there's a lot of versatility and usefulness in this. Populating contacts is sort of the first chore, and there's a couple ways you could do that. Let's say I went into my Google Contacts. I could select a bunch of contacts and then go to this actions and then export. What we want is a format called vcard, sometimes called VCF. What it's going to create is a file format called a VCF. We can then import that file into Trustworthy. I think I've got one of these files handy. So let's do this. I've got a VCF file here. I can do add contact, select import. I'm going to drag this file over. I think there was 3 or so contacts in here, so I can see those contacts land. Now, as far as keeping them updated, here's the trick right now. Now you have a digital twin of those contacts. They're in Trustworthy and they came from Google. They're not synced, so they're not, if you updated it here, it's not going to change in the other place. We don't have a solution for keeping them up to date yet. But as we move forward with sort of some new development that we're doing that allows you to connect into your Google account, we should be able to have a better story in the future about keeping these in sync. For now, you can import them, and we'll have to keep them updated through love and effort, I guess. And you can do the same in something like Apple contacts. You can sort of shift click or control click on a bunch of them. I'm right clicking here and saying exporting to vcard. Same sort of thing. It's going to create a file that includes all these contacts. You could then import that into Trustworthy. There's one other option on your mobile device as well. Let's say I went over to contacts on my mobile device and I clicked add. I could do import device, and it's going to go through, it's going to show me my contacts that are on my device, and I can select the contacts that I want and import them into Trustworthy as well. Okay, but again, it's not a live, always updated connection. If I change these in Google Contacts, that change won't flow through to Trustworthy as of yet. Okay.
Yeah, I want this too, Herschel. I find myself creating contacts for properties in Trustworthy, and they maybe don't exist in Google Contacts, but I want them to, and vice versa. So I think this is a good one.
Yeah.
I've hinted at more Google connectivity that's coming very soon to give folks the option of connecting up their email contacts and calendar from Google, so that we can import documents from email accounts, import contacts from Google Contacts, and have that sort of two-way with Calendar, where we're able to ingest things from Calendar if people want that, but also we're able to push reminders and other events back out to your calendar in a calendar feed from Trustworthy. So a lot of that is very high on our priority list. So good news in that respect.
Okay, and 2 more additional questions from Anurag. Do I need to click on the hollow radio button for Renew Passport to turn on the reminder? And then the additional question is around security. How do you ensure a disgruntled employee will not leak data to the internet?
Let's talk about reminders first, and then we can get into a discussion on security. These are great questions. So you can see these reminders got stacked up here. If I was to click on any one of these, let's say Renew Passport, it's going to take me over to, I think, the area that you're talking about. This action of clicking on this hollow radio button is actually marking the reminder as complete. So the reminder is activated. There's not currently a way for these ones that get generated automatically like this. There's no way to delete those reminders or dismiss them or prevent them from generating yet. They're going to generate them. This checkbox is to say to mark it complete, so it removes it from your reminder list and you won't get reminded on it. Now, theoretically, if you've done this step, what's going to happen is you're going to upload a new passport because you renewed it. And then we're going to extract the next reminder from that new passport that you uploaded. There is some other areas in the system where we're generating reminders automatically, like legal is a good category, a good example. If you put a will in there, it's going to generate this reminder to review that document annually. If you click to complete it, it's going to just generate the next instance for you. Reminders is going to get a lot of love in the future to get more configuration on how you want to deal with reminders. Some people might not want to see reminders for certain things. Some people might want to get more lead time on certain types of reminders, might want to push them to a calendar. There's a lot of stuff that we're working on in regards to that. But the hollow checkbox is to mark that as done. Hopefully that makes sense.
I'll take the next one, which is about disgruntled employees. This is a great question, actually. I don't think I've heard this one before. There's really two ways to answer this. One is don't have disgruntled employees. And we don't. We have very happy employees, and there's a whole tangential conversation we could have about how we do achieve that. But I think the answer you're looking for here is that employees don't have access to customer information beyond like subscription, like what kind of subscription they're on, payment information, those kinds of things. They simply just don't have access to any of the account information that's in your account. So that's the protection layer that we have. And I think, so Kyle brought up the security page. Part of this is our philosophy, keeping your information private and secure. And then the majority of it is really sort of the methodology or technology we employ to keep your information private and secure. But a big part of this is philosophy, right? That we make conscious choices to do, consistent training for our team members around security and what that means. They have to do training a couple times a year as a reminder, like that we're in the business of keeping client information private and secure. The other part is just this philosophy that your information is your information. Like we don't own it. We don't monetize it. That's not our business. But we're in the business of keeping your information available to you in the moments that you need it. And if anyone is to monetize it, it's you, and you making a decision to do that. You may be aware that we have a marketplace of partners across both services and products. And the intent of these is to either help you build and maintain your system on the services side, or do that for a loved one who lives remotely from you, or help you find a solution to an opportunity or a hole in your system that you would like to fill. Meaning, you don't have life insurance, or you don't have pet insurance, or you don't have a trust and will. We have partners across the spectrum that you can see at the marketplace, trustworthy.com/marketplace. And these folks provide discounts to our members. And if there is any money that's passed for landing a new customer, you benefit from that. You are sharing your information, and if there's an affiliate fee or something like that, you get that back, right, into your account that you can use for other marketplace solutions or for a subscription credit. That's really the intent. So hopefully that describes a little bit about our philosophy and why none of our employees have access to client information.
Yeah, one other note on that. There's this item on our security page called tokenization, which is pretty important, I guess, in that typically if there was going to be a breach or something like that you may have seen with other vendors, it's the database that gets exposed. Our database is filled with tokenized data, meaning your data is not actually in our database. So from a product perspective and knowing how people use the system, it's sometimes frustrating. I have no idea what you're putting in the system. It's just arbitrary strings of data. There's no information in there at all. Nothing that ties back any PII to a person. It's a costly thing that we do to sort of extrapolate and protect the data and reduce risk and things like that. So tokenization is a big aspect of this to make sure that there are no trustworthy employees that can see data. And often frustrating, but it's how we have to work. So I have no idea what you guys are putting in there. We know high level analytics, like how many times a file has been uploaded, but I couldn't tell you what the files are or what they represent or anything like that.
Yeah, tokenization is this extra layer of security. If you think of the security as an onion, it's an extra layer around your information that we decided to implement that I don't think anyone else has bothered to implement, meaning because it's expensive and time consuming to implement it. But it's the layer that we all wanted for our own information, to use Trustworthy across our households. And so it's a great facility, and every single one of our members benefits from this.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a bit because we have two questions that are similar. They are, how can I best orient family and collaborators to Trustworthy, and any thoughts about how to convince my father to be comfortable with digital filing rather than stuffing papers into his overflowing file cabinet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a sort of generational question here. I think beyond, so for regular family, what you're doing in creating this treasure map to your household is really an act of love. And I think if you can communicate it that way, then it's going to land well, right? I'm doing this because I love you. And if something were to happen to me, I want to make sure that you know where to go to find all the important things that you may kind of know about, but don't know all the details. And that's very common, right? That there are these now like black boxes on either side of the household, where if you have a partner, they're managing one set of things and you're managing another set of things, and you kind of know what's going on, but maybe not all the details. And this bifurcation of responsibility because of the overwhelming amount of stuff that needs to get done. And so if you can position it with your loved ones, like, hey, I'm doing this because I love you, then that's a great way to land it and get them to sort of accept the invitation and be part of the system and even contribute. Lots of folks will say, oh, I don't even have access. My wife or husband needs to contribute that information. So you're collaboratively building it together. And I think that's, hey, something you can do together for the benefit of the family. For elderly folks, for loved ones, it can be a little bit more challenging, particularly if you're thinking about the baby boomer generation, simply because they just didn't grow up with technology in the same way that Generation X did. Generation X had Facebook and email and, a lot of electronic things that they just took for granted that were part of their lives. And baby boomers tended not to have those things. So it's a little bit more of a hurdle. One way that we've provided for this is a network of what we call Trustworthy certified experts who come from these amazing organizations like the National Association of Senior Move Managers, the National Association of Professional Organizers, the American Association of Daily Money Managers, and Professionals of Afterlife Service, on and on and on. We recruit from those organizations because these folks already have established businesses, and all those organizations have amazing ethics and standards. We then do a background check to verify that they're good people, essentially, and put them through our Trustworthy certified expert training so they understand the platform completely. And then they're available to go work with your elderly parents, particularly because lots of folks live remotely from their parents. They don't live in the same town these days often. And they want a trusted person to be able to go work with their parents and start to sort of digitize and move that information into Trustworthy so that, if something were to happen, and there's all kinds of scenarios, medical issues, cognitive decline, healthcare, banking, all of the things that your parents may want you to be more involved in as they age, and especially as they approach that estate transition, that the certified experts can help set this all up in Trustworthy and do this remotely. So that's one way to approach it. But, the conversation can be difficult even just to broach. Again, I think the best way to do it is like, this is an act of love. We want to make sure that your wishes are represented in a way that you intend as this inevitable and state transition is going to happen at some point. So I think we actually have more content around how to do this. If you go to that blog, there's more content around how to broach these conversations with loved ones.
Quickly, I just want to point out, and speaking of collaboration, we sort of never talked about it. Couple things, if it's like family members, say a spouse or adult child that you want to invite, and they're listed in your family members, you can go into their family ID, you can say invite as collaborator, specify an email address. You can edit permissions. There's a few levels of access here. Full access means they see everything. Partial access, you can get very selective as to what they can see. And legacy access means they might not have access now, but in the event of your passing, they can go through a process to get elevated access. I want to touch on something that Robert asked about, can I give a fiduciary view-only access? The answer right now is no. You can give them partial access, meaning, you can see finance and maybe my taxes category. But once they have that category, they'll be able to add new documents, download documents, things like that. It is something that's been on our roadmap. And as we approach this new version we've been hinting at, this will be something that we work on as a read-only view or view-only view for people, just more granularity around permissions. So that's a good question. You can't do view-only now, but in the future, you will be able to.
All right. The next question is from Stephen around security. My personal info is uploaded. If my banking info is uploaded, there is a risk if it is hacked. I have set up security with facial recognition. Is that acceptable? You had mentioned using MFA.
Yeah, I mean, I think this feels like a sort of general security question, but the things that we sort of demand that you have, the two things basically are a robust password. You can't create a simple password like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So you have to have a robust password, and you have to have multi-factor authentication before you put anything into Trustworthy. And that, in some cases, I think particularly for our use case, that's sort of the base level protections. You can, and that you have this second factor authentication, whether it's mobile or an app, or if you want to have a secure network, secure network key, a hardware device that is your second factor authentication, like a YubiKey, that you can have that layer of security as well. And this is sort of the bare minimum that we would consider appropriate for this application of keeping your information private and secure. If you want to learn more about secure, of course, we support biometrics as well as part of that multi-factor, and those are really the reason to have MFA, that you must have MFA, is it's a great protection against social engineering, meaning someone calls you and asks you for your password, and maybe there's a reason that you might give that, but then they still have to have that second factor authentication, which usually requires some biometric or verification layer. Those are great protections to keep information safe. So yeah, if you haven't set those up, let us know, because Trustworthy demands it as part of your sign-up process, that you can't proceed until you have multi-factor authentication set up. So if you do have those things, you're in a good place. And if you want to go further, we can tell you about YubiKeys and hardware keys and those kinds of things as well.
All right. The next two questions are around feature requests. How soon can you enable checkpoint restoration to restore back account with all documents and all inputs and everything my account gets in less in case my account gets erased or undone via my collaborators?
Right. I'll talk a bit about this. So there's one option now and then a future iteration that we're going to see with this. The first is you can, under your settings menu, do an export that will export all of your documents into a single zip, so you can do a backup of everything that's been in Trustworthy. This is just your documents. Now, most of Trustworthy is built from the data that's in your documents. You know, if you added notes to a page or something like that, it's not going to get exported currently. We are working on a better offline backup of things so that you can export effectively the binder that represents all this data, or like a digital PDF. Theoretically, that could be used to restore account if your account got removed or something like that for some reason. So there's more to come on account restoration in those cases. Just know that you can export your files that are in Trustworthy now, and this is going to improve over time as like another way to get back to live if you lost things in Trustworthy. But it would be pretty hard for a collaborator to wipe out your account. But if you have a sense that some of that stuff is happening, please reach out to us and we can do an audit and see what's happening inside your account.
Yeah, we obviously do daily backups for all the information in Trustworthy. And if you're not aware, I think part of this question is about version control a little bit. It's sort of this idea of like, what is it, the Apple Drive where you could back up your system to a specific date.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that today, but we do have an archive feature if you haven't discovered it yet, where you can archive, let's say you sold a property and you had a lot of documents associated to that. You don't necessarily want to delete it, like you might want to hold on for, you can archive so it doesn't show up in your system, but it's still there. You can easily bring it back. So that's a limited version of an archival process, but not what you're talking about, like a time-stamped recovery. Like Kyle said, there should really be no need for you to have to do that.
In our last minute, I just wanted to capture Mark's suggestion. Have you given any thought to having a section called How To? There are lots of things that I do that my wife has no idea how to do. For example, changing the digital garden sprinkling system, changing the schedule for automatic lights for when we travel, changing the Nest thermostat, etc.
Yeah, this is a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart. This comes up a lot. One thing I've seen our clients do, now there's room for improvement here, of course, and we're working towards that. One thing I've seen people do is use this family resources section. In here, you can create sort of a document, and I've seen people create sort of the home operating instructions. So this is a document that lists out all the details about the scenarios that you're talking about. I've often seen people create bill pay procedures, so a summary of all the bills. So it's kind of like when I die, read these docs type scenario. You can create those documents. The thing that I think is a bit of a shortcoming right now is there's no way to pin these documents so they're easily discoverable by somebody who logs in. Something that we're working on in this next version of Trustworthy is this idea of pinning things, so you can pin or favorite things and push them to someone else's dashboard, so that, you know, when your wife logged in, she's going to see home operating instructions and bill pay procedures, or read this. If you're reading this, I've passed away. You could build these sorts of things and pin them. That's something that we're working on in the future. This idea of like this operating manual is huge, and I see a lot of people do that. So you'll see more of that in the future to help you do that sort of thing. Geez, these are good questions.
Yeah, great questions today. Thanks, everyone. I know we're time. If you have follow-up questions that occur to you later on, please send those to support@trustworthy.com. We love getting your questions and recommendations for making the system better. I see Mark had a good recommendation for reminders here, so thank you for that. Yeah. Please keep those coming. We love the feedback, and we do listen carefully to all the feedback and are constantly trying to make the system better for you and your families.
One last note, Nat, this recording, we're going to put it on YouTube. It'll take couple hours for it to render, and then we'll get it up there and you'll see an email where we can share it back out to you.
Yep, great. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you today, and hope you have a great rest of day. That's it from us.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.